Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters. I ask Allah that all of you are doing well and staying safe. This week discussion we will continue about learning some of the basics, some of the highlights of Prophet Muhammad. So next week inshallah we will ask the question of how can we prove that he is truthful, that he's not a liar or crazy or making things up inshallah. So this week our discussion will continue about after where we left last week. So today, the first highlight of his life, which signals the end of the Meccan phase, at the end of it, near the boycott. So there is one famous incident called the Ta'if incident, where Prophet Muhammad, at the year of sorrow, where his wife Khadija, may Allah have mercy on her, she passed away, and his uncle Abdul Muttalib, who took care of him when he was a baby, when he was a kid, passed away as well. So 1 year that Prophet Muhammad was extremely sad, that they actually called it the year of sorrow. And once his uncle passed away, Prophet Muhammad, he lost protection. Because of that environment, you need a leader to give you protection, to be part of their tribe and part of their community, and so on and on. So when his uncle passed away, Prophet Muhammad, he has no protection anymore. So some people hinted to him, told him that who gonna protect you now from us? So he knew that things gonna be worse. He knew things gonna go about to go down. So he was able to flee one day with his servant Zayd. So they left and they went for a journey to Ta'if. So once he reached Ta'if, he went and visited all their leaders. So his leader, he used to have three sons, three type like princes or type of thing. So he went to each one of these three, asking them asking them for protection and preaching to them, and to see if they can allow him to start preaching his message in Ta'if. They all basically insulted him, disrespected him, and they kicked him out. All of them. So after all of them rejected him, they actually even prevented him from preaching. And on his way out, on his way to leave Ta'if, for them to kick him out so he will never return. And actually, I think there's just some highlights. There is so much information to go through this story, but I think Quraysh themselves, they sent some spies to Ta'if, telling them that if Muhammad came to you, reject him, or we're gonna be your enemies, and so on and on. So there was a lot of politics happening behind the scenes. So after they rejected him and they tried to kick him out, they actually gathered the slaves in the city and these kids that just walking around, like orphans and homeless kids and so on and on, or just kids who always play outside. So they gathered these kids and the slaves and they told them to stone these two guys, Prophet Muhammad and Zayd. So once Prophet Muhammad about to leave the city, so they stood up like two rows, two groups in front of him. Once he took one step, everybody started throwing rocks at him. And he took step back out of his shock. He didn't understand what's happening, what they doing, what they trying to do. So until he understood that they want to stone him until he leave the city. So he took one step, so they keep running in front of him. The closer he get, a group go much further in front of him, and they keep switching. So they kept running in front of him and stoning him. And then Zayd, he stood up actually in front of him and covered Prophet Muhammad with his body, so he will work as a shield to protect him while they leave. And once these slaves and kids, they saw that Zayd protecting Prophet Muhammad, they actually knew that the bigger person, the more important person, is the Prophet and not Zayd. So they picked up a huge rock and they slammed it on the head of Zayd that he actually passed out. So Prophet Muhammad, he continued running, and they knew the further that he getting from the city, the less people start stoning him, until they said, look, let's target his feet because we know that he will be traveling on foot. He doesn't have animals. So they actually start targeting his foot until he reached the borders. He exited the borders of the city. And we know this incident is the hardest incident that he ever went through. And we know, inshallah, the more you learn about the biography of Prophet Muhammad, you will know that he had to go through so much hardship for the rest of his life for his message, that he was poisoned, he was stabbed, they tried to assassinate him, and so on and on. And one time, Aisha radiallahu anha asked him, which incident was the most difficult and more heartbreaking to you? And he mentioned the incident of Ta'if. So inshallah, we will learn about this incident more in depth in the future. So he said that things was so bad that because of the, like, every single piece of his body started bleeding because of the stoning, and blood was so much, so severe, that he was start bleeding into his feet, into his shoes, and into his sandals. And because of the blood, and you know their shoes used to be from leather, so it actually his sandals shrank and become tight because of the blood and the dead skin and so on, that it almost became part of his foot. So you can imagine how painful that was, that he fled to a neighboring farm for protection. So he sat down underneath a tree until Zayd came to him. He sat down, relaxing, like chilling underneath the shade of the tree. So the owners of the farm, they actually sent their servant to bring to Prophet Muhammad some fruit, some water, to help him out, because they felt sorry about what just happened to him, and he's all bleeding and so on and on. So from this incident, we know that a complete chapter in the Quran called Surat al-Jinn, the chapter of Jinn, actually was revealed, because Prophet Muhammad was, when he was sitting there, he started reciting the Quran, and a group of jinn, they came and started listening to his recitation. So this incident of Ta'if is very famous, and I'm just trying to introduce some information to you. So after Prophet Muhammad was sitting there, the Holy Spirit, Angel Gabriel, he came down to him with the angels of the mountains, the angels who are in control of the mountains. They came to him and he said, "O Prophet of Allah, Allah sent us to you. You may ask us anything you want and we will do it." And he said, if you want us to flip these two mountains on top of the city of Ta'if, we will destroy everything, everyone in it, and nobody will remember them, and nobody even gonna know that any people was living there. That's how powerful they were. But the Prophet Muhammad, because his mercy to mankind and his being that role model for all of us, he actually prayed for them and not against them. So he said, no, I ask Allah to bring among them children that we will be worshipping Allah alone. And we know after Prophet Muhammad passed away, when he got older and he finished his message, there is a group of people came from Ta'if, converted to Islam, and they actually played a huge role in the protection and defending of the religion. So we know that the prayer of Prophet Muhammad actually was accepted. So this is the incident of Ta'if. You can inshallah look it up, research about it, watch some videos to get some more information about this incident. Then after Prophet Muhammad went back to Mecca after this incident, he were able to get some protection from other people, other leaders in the city. And then life became so bad in Mecca. And the last thing, we know that when they tried to kill Prophet Muhammad. So when things become so bad, Allah told Prophet Muhammad to give them permission to migrate and leave Mecca. So here when we learn about the big migration, where the Muslims, they actually start fleeing, migrating from Mecca all the way to Medina. Uh-huh. And only Prophet Muhammad left his cousin and Abu Bakr, because Prophet Muhammad was waiting for Allah to give him a permission to leave. So Allah gave a permission to the Muslims in general, and Prophet Muhammad wanted to make sure that Allah wants him to leave Mecca as well. So one night, when the Quraysh found out that the Muslims are fleeing, they leaving everything behind them. So like all their belongings, their treasures, their houses, their families, everything. The Muslim, they start leaving everyone and everything, and they just fleeing, walking with their animals or walking on foot and so on. Once the Quraysh found out, they start capturing some people, imprisoning them, killing them. And then when they found out that Prophet Muhammad wanted to leave, they said, this is it. We're not going to let him go. They said if we're going to let him go, he's going to go to somewhere else. He's going to keep preaching. He will continue becoming more powerful. He will have more people, and he will take vengeance against us. So they collected one person from each tribe, one young boy, one young man from each tribe who is like very jealous and zealous for his tribe, and he just follow his leaders. So they collected one person from each tribe in Mecca, and they said, all of you need to go and kill Prophet Muhammad with one strike. So all of them, they're gonna come 1, 2, 3 and kill him one strike. And their understanding and reasonings, because if all of them killed him, the blood of Prophet Muhammad will be shared among all of them. And the family and the tribe of Prophet Muhammad, they will not be able to ask for qisas. They will not be able to ask for equal retribution, because they had the law that if you kill someone unjustly, you will be put to death. If you cut somebody's hand, you will be dealt the same way. Like, you know, the concept of eye for eye, tooth for a tooth, and life for life, and so on. So that's how they used to cheat and trick the system, because now the family of Prophet Muhammad, they will not be able to ask equal retribution from every single tribe. Like they go to every single tribe and say, we want one person to be killed for the life. So you get the idea. So that's what they're trying to do. But actually, Angel Gabriel, the Holy Spirit, came to Prophet Muhammad and he told him, don't sleep in your house. Don't even stay for one more minute. He said, leave right now. And he actually told him to leave Ali, his cousin, who was a child at that time, like a teenager, to leave him at your house. So actually, Ali stayed in the house of Prophet Muhammad. He kept the lights on, he kept making noises. So when Quraysh came, they saw that somebody's moving inside. They saw somebody sleeping in the bed. So they thought it was Prophet Muhammad. So they waited outside until Prophet Muhammad wakes up so they can go and kill him. So actually Allah caused them to fall asleep outside, and Prophet Muhammad was able, before everything become more serious, escalate, he was able to leave his house and moving between them, and nobody was even able to see Prophet Muhammad. So Allah actually blinded them. So Prophet Muhammad simply left, and he went to Abu Bakr. He said, I'm leaving, let's go. So he took Abu Bakr and they went, both of them, and they went into hiding in a cave. And the Quraysh, they assumed and they thought Prophet Muhammad is still in his house because they see somebody's moving and making noises, until they lost patience, until they slept the entire night, until the morning comes, and there was like, we don't know what happened. Did he left or not? Because we all were asleep. She actually stormed his house and uncovered the blanket, the bed, and they found it was Ali inside, sleeping. And they was like, "What you doing here?" He was like, "What do you mean? What I'm doing here? I'm sleeping here." So they knew that they were tricked. So they get out and they start in panicking mode, and they start putting money on the head of Prophet Muhammad. There was like, whoever gonna capture or kill Prophet Muhammad, we're gonna give him like this amount of horses, like 100 horses or something. So it was like a big fortune. So everyone in Mecca, they start looking for Prophet Muhammad. Every enemy that hates Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims, they actually start looking for Prophet Muhammad. That they start looking for his footprints and so on and on. So you get the idea. It was very hard time uh, for Prophet Muhammad, especially during these days. But Prophet Muhammad, he was actually very genius and he was very smart, that he actually didn't simply leave Mecca. He actually tricked them, and he was actually planning his escape very carefully. So he had an entire plan set up where he escapes with Abu Bakr, where they go into hiding in a cave for a few days. And he had a young shepherd gazing his animals behind them to destroy all their footprints. And he had his daughter, the daughter of Abu Bakr, to bring them food and water every now and then, everyone like once a day, and so on and on. Her name is Asma. So after 3 to 4 days, after Quraysh, they gave up because they kept traveling in every direction. They kept looking, trying to capture Prophet Muhammad, until they basically gave up. They was like, that's it, he's gone. We cannot find him anymore. So actually, Prophet Muhammad and Abu Bakr, now they start leaving. And when they left, they didn't even leave in the direction of Medina. They actually left in the opposite direction. So when people see the footprints of the animals, they say, "Oh, these people are going into that city. They're not going to Medina. They are not Muslims." So that's what he did. And then after a short period, a long distance or short distance, he took a U-turn and he went to Medina. So this is give you an understanding of how he migrated until he reached Medina. And when he reached Medina, everybody welcomed him. And there's a famous group of Muslims who are called Ansar. So until now, we only have one group of Muslims who are Muhajirin, those who migrated. So the first 13 years of Islam, of preaching, we have the Muslims who migrated from Mecca to Medina, and they are called Muhajirin, those who did Hijrah, migration. Once Prophet Muhammad reached to Medina, there was a group of Muslims there already, and they are called Ansar. Ansar are people who give Nusra. They give victory to the Muslims. So now we have the two groups. We have the people who migrated and the people who already lives in Medina and welcomed the Muslims to their city and to their houses. So when Prophet Muhammad went to Medina, everybody started welcoming him and welcoming Abu Bakr and so on and Ali. Ali reached there after a short period of time. Now the life in Medina is different from Mecca. Now Muslims are living in peace by themselves. They had some Jewish people living there, and Arabs and non-Muslims as well. But when they came and they already had support from the people in Medina, now Islam started growing. Now Prophet Muhammad built a mosque, a masjid, and until now is known as the prophetic mosque, Masjid an-Nabawi, the masjid, the mosque of Prophet Muhammad. And then Prophet Muhammad made brotherhood between Al Ansar and Muhajirin, between the Muslims who migrated and the Muslims in Medina already, when he says, now you take one brother. So everybody took one brother into his house, start sharing everything that he owns with them to make them feel welcome and don't allow them to start from zero, if that makes sense. That's why you see the brotherhood and the community aspect in Islam is very important. That we all should be treat each other as one big family. Also in Medina, now we see treaties taking place between Muslims and non-Muslims, between the Jewish people, with the Jewish tribes, with different tribes, where Prophet Muhammad establishes um, peace. Tell them, look, you either become Muslim or let's make a treaty. We're not going to fight each other. Let's live in peace between each other, and so on and on. And the fighting with Quraysh continued. So even after Prophet Muhammad left Mecca and started living in Medina, the Quraysh, they kept fighting the Muslims, and the Muslims kept fighting the Quraysh, and they had like almost two, three, four major wars between Muslims and Quraysh. And Muslims, they kept fighting the Quraysh in Mecca, and now they kept increasing in numbers, and now they start stopping any caravans that going to Mecca. They take it to themselves, and so on and on, because they continue fighting. It was not peacetime. So the Muslims kept growing, the Quraysh kept losing their numbers, and the Quraysh, they kept losing and being defeated so bad that they actually were forced to make a treaty. Make sense? So they ended up making a treaty with the Muslims to establish peace. They said, look, let's make a treaty that we're not gonna fight each other. Unless one of the other condition is we will allow anybody to convert to Islam if his family agrees. Makes sense? And then they said you should allow anybody to leave Islam with no conditions. But if somebody want to convert to Islam, they need to get the permission of their family members. Prophet Muhammad agreed, no problem whatsoever. And even after this, Muslim people tried to convert to Islam, and Prophet Muhammad, he said, I cannot accept you. We are in a treaty. I cannot accept you. We are in treaty. And he kept only accepting people to convert when they have a permission from their family, or people who have no family, like freed slaves or orphans, widows. Some people, they don't belong to like a big family and tribe. Make sense? Until the numbers of Muslims who left Quraysh and they tried to become Muslims, but Prophet Muhammad cannot welcome them, they actually start increasing in numbers, and they start living on the borders of Mecca. They said, look, we don't want to live with you. We are not Qurayshis anymore, and we are not Muslims living in Medina. We are Muslims, but we cannot live with the Muslims. So they start living outside, if that makes sense. And because these Muslims are not part of the treaty, because they don't belong to Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims in Medina, they actually start fighting Quraysh. Makes sense? So they always had that tension with these small people. So these small people start growing. Everybody who want to become Muslim, they say, hey, you cannot go to Prophet Muhammad. They have a treaty and we should honor this treaty. So come and stay with us. Come stay with us. They start growing numbers. until Quraysh, uh-huh, they went to Prophet Muhammad and they said, look, let's change the treaty. Now you can take anybody who comes to you. Makes sense? So that's a way for them to make things easier for them, for the Quraysh. And then Muslims, they start converting to Islam, and they're going to live in Medina. Then the end of it, until one of the big highlights is actually one of the tribes of Quraysh. They broke the treaty, and they went it and they invaded one of the cities of Muslims where Muslims used to live there. They went and they were ready. They had their weapons, their armors, their shields, their horses. So Quraysh indirectly supported this, because where did they get all these animals and weapons and so on to go and fight the Muslims? So it was not something small between two cities. So because Quraysh, they broke their treaty, and they went and they attacked the Muslims. Now Prophet Muhammad took this as a sign that the treaty is gone. We made a treaty, we should honor it. Once you guys break it, it's broken now. And was the and this signaled the return of Prophet Muhammad to Mecca, where he took all the Muslims. He says, let's go, every single man, I need you. Let's go and get ready and get your weapons and so on. And he said, even if you don't have weapons, I need you. Let's go. So Quraysh, kept sending Abu Sufyan, they sending different leaders to tell Prophet Muhammad, look, let's keep the treaty. What happened is happened. It was a mistake and so on and on. But Prophet Muhammad didn't accept, because they killed Muslims unjustly, and he was waiting for that opportunity to stop this treaty, because Muslims now are powerful. They don't need to they're not in a position, they don't need to have a treaty with Quraysh anymore. So at that, Prophet Muhammad called every single Muslim and he said, let's go and travel. And they all said, we listen and we obey. And he went again in the opposite direction of Mecca. So all the spies, all the hypocrites, they start going to Mecca. They say, don't worry, don't worry. Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims, they're going to that city in that specific direction. Don't worry, they're not coming, they're not fighting, whatever. Until like a day or so, then Prophet Muhammad took a huge U-turn, skipping Medina, going all the way. He went all the way and he reached Mecca. And one day, from nowhere, you have 10,000 soldiers, 10,000 Muslims. They simply marched and they went inside Mecca. So the Quraysh, they couldn't even prepare for war. They saw them coming, but they couldn't stop, they couldn't do anything. So Prophet Muhammad gave them, like, he said, look, whoever stays in their house, we're not gonna fight them. Whoever want to become Muslims, we're not gonna fight them. Whoever go to the house of Abu Sufyan, we're not gonna fight them. So he gave them so much leeway. He went inside Mecca with his list of names. And he says, whenever you guys find these people, you either kill them or bring them in. So he went to Mecca. Everybody came out. Everybody in Mecca came out. Prophet Muhammad called all these people in their name. And he says, you guys, do you remember you did this? Do you remember you killed this person? You remember you tortured this person? You remember you guys did this when I told you the opposite thing? You lied about me. You said that. And he started going and reminding them of everything that they done on the Muslims by oppressing them and killing them. Until Quraysh, they knew that they deserve death now. That's it, because they did so much wrong, and he remembers everything by name. Then he gathered all of them and he asked them this famous incident. The incident of, what should I do to you now? You guys did all this. You guys kicked us out. You boycotted us, poisoned us, fought us, did all these things, and we were right. We were on the truth. And they all were silent. And then some leaders of the tribe, they said, "Oh, you are um, one of the honorable people among us. You belong to the honorable families and tribes. Um, we ask you to be easy on us, to forgive us and have mercy on us." And then the famous statement of Prophet Muhammad, where he said, "All of you are free now. All of you are free. There is no blame on you. There is nothing against you now. So everything start fresh page." And Muslims are victorious, and they liberated Mecca, and they went and destroyed every single idol. They had like 360 idols around the Kaaba. They went, destroyed all the idols. They went inside the Kaaba, cleaned it from all these idols and images and statues that they had, and then they established Islam in Mecca. After for few weeks, few months, Prophet Muhammad put a leader in Mecca, and he went back to Medina, and he lived with the Muslims. And then he had his farewell sermon where he told them, "Haven't I delivered the message fully and completely?" And they said, "We testify that you delivered the message fully and completely. Nothing is missing." And he kept asking them, "Is everything I delivered? Did I do my job? I did my job." So he kept advising them, "I advise you to be honest, to keep your salah, take care of your orphans, take care of your women, your slaves, don't do this, don't do that." He kept advising them in his farewell sermon that people knew that something happening. And from his at the same incident, the same time period, Allah himself, he says, "Today I have perfected your religion for you, and I accepted Islam as your religion, and the only acceptable religion in the sight of Allah, in the sight of God." So all these hints, some companions, they understood that this is the end. And after this short sermon from Prophet Muhammad, he fell ill, he became sick, and then extremely sick, and then he passed away in his house with his wife. So understand, I'm giving you all this as a highlight, give you some understanding of the historical development of the religion. So we dive into a more difficult question next week, inshallah. Finally, I want us to understand that the Medina phase, it was actually 10 years. So after Prophet Muhammad migrated from Mecca and he went to Medina, he stayed there for 10 years, preaching, growing, and doing all these things. So there are verses in the Quran that was revealed in Medina, that's called Medina verses. And I want you to understand the context of it. It is when Muslims were powerful. They had their own president, the leader, Prophet Muhammad. They had their own courts, houses, government, and so on and on. So everything was different in Medina. Make sense? And here in Medina, where all the verses, all the law was revealed. So the first 13 years it was all about belief system, day of judgment, oneness of God, and so on and on, until um when Medina verses was all about law, rights, treaties, and so on and on. So now every time you open the Quran and you read, whenever you see the long surahs, hundreds of verses, tens and twenties and fifties of pages, you know this was revealed in Medina. And every time you see the description of the hypocrites, it is in Medina, where some people they start becoming Muslims just to gain some benefit. They're not becoming Muslims out of their belief and conviction. Um, Now you see some of the surahs when Allah talks to the believers. He say, "All you who believe, He's not talking generally to all mankind. Um, every time you see challenging, discussing, and inviting the people of the book, the Jews and the Christians, that was in Medina, where Prophet Muhammad started engaging and preaching to the Jews and Christians. And here, where you see the rules, punishments, and obligations in our religion, that's revealed in Medina. Here, where you will learn about the goals of the religion. What is the religion all about? Maqasid al-Sharia. What is the religion is all about? What it came to establish? What's the reasons behind all these commandments and laws and so on and on? Also, you will find Allah's talking about so many different things. Talks about dealings, transactions, marriage, divorce, zakat, fighting, jihad, and so on and on. So here were more practical aspect of the religion, how you live your life, how you behave, and so on and on. All this was revealed in Medina. That's why I'm highlighting this, because it will help you understand the Quran. It will help you understand the religion and the development of the religion itself. Um, and this is basically why I'm sharing this with you, the Medina and Meccan verses, to help you put things into perspective, into context, and the social environment, and help you learn about the seerah, about the biography of Prophet Muhammad, and help you understand the and revolution, um, development and evolution of the religion, and help you understand there are generic and explicit verses, and there is conditional and unconditional verses, and there is abrogated verses and abrogator verses. So all this is just give you an overview when you read the Quran, that there are so many things that you need to be mindful of, especially the environment, the context, the perspective that the Muslims were living in these two phases. Lastly, I want us to keep these points in mind. I want you to keep in your mind that the life in Medina was much better and peaceful than Mecca. And the Muslims, they only had three major wars during the time of Prophet Muhammad. Ta'if, the incident of Ta'if, was one of the worst incidents that Prophet Muhammad ever had in his lifetime. And the Medina verses and the Quranic verses are different in context and in style, and the information that's talking about the context. And Muslims always kept their promises and their treaties. Was only when Quraysh they broke their treaty, their promise, that nullified the entire treaty that they had with the Muslims, and that's why the Muslims were able to go back and liberate Mecca. Um, and we are done for today. Thank you guys so much for coming. Subhanallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Oh Allah, we thank you so much for all the blessing that you gave us. We ask you to bless us, to guide us, to protect us, to increase us in knowledge, increase us in understanding, and to be with us at all times. And we ask you to send your blessings and mercy and salutations upon Prophet Muhammad, his family members, his companions, and all other Muslims who follow him until the day of judgment. And as always, feel free to send me any questions that you have on your mind, and I would love to discuss them with you or next week, inshallah. Thank you so much, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.